India just did something that most countries are still trying to figure out, and it says a lot about where the global energy transition is really heading. In a single year, India added over 6 gigawatts of wind energy capacity. That's a 46% increase. On the surface, that might sound like just another statistic, but when you zoom out, it starts to tell a much bigger story about speed, scale, and direction. Because this isn't just growth, this is acceleration. For a long time, India has been viewed as a country that would remain heavily dependent on fossil fuels. And to be fair, that assumption made sense. You're talking about one of the largest populations in the world, rapid industrial growth, expanding cities, and an energy demand that keeps rising every single year. Historically, when countries go through that kind of growth, they lean heavily on coal, oil, and gas. It's cheaper, it's established, and the infrastructure already exists. So the expectation was simple. India would follow the same path, build with fossil fuels first, then transition later. But that's not exactly what's happening anymore. What we're seeing now is a shift in strategy. India isn't just adding renewable energy slowly over time, it's scaling it aggressively. And that difference matters more than people realize. Because there's a huge difference between adding renewable energy gradually and building it at a pace that starts to reshape your entire energy system. When a country starts adding gigawatts of clean energy at this level, consistently year after year, it doesn't just improve the system, it begins to replace parts of it. That's when things start to change structurally. A lot of people focus heavily on solar when they talk about renewable energy, and for good reason. Solar is growing incredibly fast, but wind energy plays a different role. Solar depends on sunlight. It's predictable but limited to certain hours. Wind, on the other hand, can generate power at different times of the day and night. When combined with solar, it helps create a more balanced and stable energy system. So when India increases its wind capacity by this much, it's not just adding more clean energy, it's improving the reliability of its entire grid. And that's a key part of scaling renewables properly. What makes India particularly interesting isn't just the percentage growth, it's the scale behind it. This isn't a small country making incremental progress. This is one of the largest energy markets in the world making aggressive moves. And scale changes everything. Because when a country like India increases renewable capacity, it drives lower costs through demand, more investment into infrastructure, faster technological improvements. And that doesn't just benefit India, it affects the global energy market. When large economies start moving towards renewable energy at this speed, it sends signals across the entire world. Investors pay attention, manufacturers respond, other countries start adjusting their strategies. It creates momentum. And this is where things get interesting, because the energy transition is no longer being driven only by developed countries. Emerging economies are now becoming major players in this shift, and that changes the narrative completely. For decades, the global development playbook was simple. Develop using fossil fuels, industrialize quickly, then think about clean energy later. But India is starting to show that there's another path. A country can grow, expand its energy capacity, and still scale renewable energy at the same time. That doesn't mean fossil fuels disappear immediately, but it does mean they don't have to dominate the way they used to. And if this model works at scale, it could redefine how developing nations approach energy going forward. Now, this isn't some smooth, perfect transition. There are real challenges. Infrastructure needs to keep up with demand. Energy storage becomes more critical as renewable capacity increases. Grid stability has to be carefully managed. Because adding renewable energy is one thing, integrating it properly is another. And if those systems aren't built correctly, it can create inefficiencies or instability. So while the growth is impressive, the execution still matters. But even with those challenges, the direction is becoming clear. Renewable energy is no longer just an alternative option for countries like India. It's becoming a central part of their long-term energy strategy. And when you combine that with similar growth happening in other regions, you start to see a pattern forming. This isn't isolated, this is global. So now the conversation shifts. It's no longer about whether countries like India will adopt renewable energy. That part is already happening. The real question is speed. How fast can this scale continue? How quickly can infrastructure catch up? And at what point does this start to significantly reduce reliance on fossil fuels? Because once that tipping point is reached, the balance of power in energy starts to shift. India's growth in renewable energy isn't just a local story, it's a signal that the energy transition is no longer slow, predictable, or limited to a few countries. It's becoming faster, larger, and more global than most people expected. And if this pace continues, we're not just looking at a gradual transition anymore. We're looking at a system that's being reshaped in real time.